Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of SubQuery's customer series, where we're talking to various customers that utilize SubQuery in their applications from various different ecosystems and across various different verticals. And today we're going all the way to Algorand, into DeFi, and we're talking to one of the biggest teams in Algorand, or from Algorand in the space, Folks Finance. And I'm lucky enough to be joined by Benedetto. Benedetto, thanks very much for joining us. Where are you calling from, by the way?
I'm calling from Malta, and by the way, thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure to support the show.
I haven't really jumped on a call with someone from Malta quite recently. It's quite unusual. Hey, can you tell us a bit about yourself and also about Folks Finance?
Yes, sure. So myself, I am Italian. As academic background, I am a mechanical engineer of bachelor, and then I did my master degree in management engineering. That's where I've been connected to innovative IT technologies, and of course there was blockchain there. I loved this technology from the very beginning. And when COVID arrived, I was forced to come back to Italy, and I started to work for the largest Web3 software house of Italy, which is called Blockchain Italia. And then Blockchain Italia was one of the first global partner of Algorand. And very simply, when we saw DeFi beginning in 2020, we thought, like, okay, we need to build something cool on Algorand. And that's where Folks Finance all started. Then, since that time, we did a fundraise in 2022 before the bear market. We hit mainnet April 2022 as well. And then we understood that in this year, things wasn't going very well. So we decided to focus on our resources in the product development. So Folks Finance at the beginning was a lending protocol. And now, in those years, switched into being a DeFi hub, which aims to offer similar operations and services that you can have on a centralized exchange, and similar ease of use in terms of user experience, but all under the centralized tools and, of course, trustless. So as today, Folks has over $85 million TVLs, all on Algorand. And we have more than 7,000 active monthly users, and the protocol offers lending, loans, swaps through Folks Router, which is the tools that we use with SubQuery. We can talk about it later. And as well, UltraSwap, which is a tool that allows you to go on leverage on your capitals based on the market exposure on the different assets, and as well liquid staking on Algorand for Galgo and Xalgo on BNB chain. So that's the complete toolings that we have as today.
Yeah, I really like that, and I like how you guys have gone from trying to build, or just starting in one area, but also slowly moving to this view of trying to provide everything you need under one roof, like replacing these centralized services and really demonstrating to everyone out there that you don't have to use centralized products to get around in Web3. Like, there are plenty of decentralized alternatives.
Our idea is very simple, right? The end users doesn't like friction. So if we think about DeFi, even on Ethereum, let's say you want to swap, you may use Uniswap, and then you want to get an yield, you go on Aave and deposit. You want to have a strategy, you compose mix of those. So this is frictionless. Most of the users don't like this. Some of them, yes, they may like, but in general, having everything in one place, it simplifies a lot the user experience, the time you spend in order to do an operation. So we thought that, okay, if DeFi wants to think to compete with centralized exchanges, we need to have something better. So that is the let's say the product mission of Folks Finance.
And then one of the challenges, I guess, especially for DeFi, is that your user base, it varies such a long way in terms of, like, you have some people that have never really done much DeFi before, never really done complicated swaps, all the way to degens that know everything about it. How do you design your product suite so you kind of do you target everyone, or you do target just one group of those?
Yeah, so is a very good question indeed, because most of the users that have started to use Fox Finance, they were new to DeFi. And as well, we had the expert users. So the idea that we had is that you need to build tools that are useful, first of all, and then try to make it as simple as possible. Because even if you have an expert user that is used to have, let's say, the complex interface, and for example, we had a huge challenge with UltraSwap in order to make it as simple as possible. And if I compare UltraSwap with similar tools on centralized exchange, I feel it's much more simple to use compared to the centralized exchange one. But again, the idea was that if you create a tool that is easy and useful for someone who is new, of course it's going to be useful and easy as well for someone who is a professional DeFi expert, let's say. So I think by let's say targeting the new users, you are getting as well the expert one, because you are just doing their life easier.
That makes a lot of sense. Do you, like, as part of your solution, your all under one roof kind of approach, do you do a lot of education as well with that? Trying to
of course
move those users up that
it is.
experience?
I have my personal opinion that first of all, education it is needed now because the tools are still complex and the awareness is not that mature. In my, let's say, holistic view of crypto and decentralized finance is that when the technology will be mature, we won't need education over it. So hopefully we're going to get there soon. But meanwhile, that we haven't this situation, I think it's very important that every team that is building needs to have this in consideration, because when you build, you need to think, okay, I need to make this as simple as possible because I want to have zero friction. Otherwise, when I'm onboarding a new user, he will stop after 20 seconds. That is an headache and not trust anymore the tool. Okay, you want to make this easier and, let's say, guided. Build, let's say, information that are going to help these contents that are going to support this onboarding. So we built the Fox Academy. Very honestly, we took, let's say, inspiration from centralized exchange as well. They have the same problem with onboarding new users. So of course, it's in their direct interest to make informative material, contents that can help the onboarding of the users. So we created the Fox Academy. It is available on our website. We have our head of partnership, Ibu, which is a great content creator, doing educative material that is, for example, what is crypto, what is DeFi, in 1 minute video pills. So it's very easy to watch, not boring. And then you have some quiz that you can do to check if you understood what you learned. And as well, we have the tutorial section. So when you're using Fox Finance, you know that anything that you are going to use, you have a video tutorial in the Fox Academy. And actually, we have great feedbacks from our user base, because most of those who are new about Fox Finance, they can learn very quickly in 10 minutes everything on our Fox Academy. And it's important, because when you are going to use an app as Fox Finance or any DeFi, you are taking certain risks, right? So you need to be very aware of what you are doing.
What do you think is the number one mistake that people brand new to DeFi make?
I think most of the mistakes are given by the attractive yield. So it is very important, in my opinion, to know where the yield is coming from, because if you are not understanding where the yield is coming from, then the yield is you. So is there something wrong? the idea in reliable DeFi apps is that everything is transparent. So, for example, we wanted to make the landing page very friendly for users that want just to accrue a simple yield. So we created a deposit page, so they understand that by in this area they are depositing, but at the same time they are lending. So the yield that they are accruing is directly paid by the borrower who is borrowing their assets. And even though when we have incentives or in the lending pools, which is a composition of providing liquidity in AMM and in the lending, we try to explain this as much as possible, because we want that our user is aware of the risks that he is taking. Because, for example, it happened that a pool could be borrowed until the 100%, so lenders weren't able to withdraw, but most of them were already understanding this. So you take a risk that if the pool is totally borrowed, there is no liquidity to withdraw. So it is very important to understand if you are using a protocol where the yield is coming from.
Where the yield's coming from. And all these crazy, some crazy numbers were put out there back in 2021, 2022 even. Yeah. Let's talk about your products, right? So you've built Folks Router, which is a kind of in-house DEX aggregator. I think it's mostly focused on Algorand, right? Tell us a bit about that, and that's what you're using SubQuery for, is it?
So as I mentioned before, Folks Finance aims to offer a complete user experience with offerings for the DeFi users. So of course, swaps is a very important part. We never wanted to build an AMM ourselves because its responsibilities adding more smart contracts, and also we want to enhance the collaboration between us and the ecosystem. So in the very beginning, we started to use another router, another DEX aggregator on Algorand. But at some point, we simply saw that a large percentage of the swaps was being done directly from the Folks users compared to all the swaps achieved by the aggregator. And also, we were about to launch also UltraSwap. So we wanted to have the complete, let's say, understanding and control over the swaps on Folks Finance, because adding, for example, a new pool on UltraSwap would require us to make sure that the router works perfectly. So we wanted to reduce the reliability to a third party, let's say. So the idea came and we were like, okay, let's build our own DEX aggregator. And we used obviously all the Algorand automated market maker DEXs, and we aggregate all together them, and also we included the lending pool of Folks Finance together with PactFi, which is our partner for the lending pools. So Folks Router allows you to do basically the best swaps routing on Algorand. It sources liquidity from all the exchanges and performs the best swap that you can. So obviously, it's kind of a little new project, right? And for us building it from scratch, we also wanted to have a dashboard for the metrics. It's very interesting to see volumes and fees. So that's where SubQuery was coming to help, and indeed it was very helpful. I think it's very interesting for those who want to see the metrics. It's at folksrouter.io/ I think it's metric. But yeah, I mean, we can keep talking about it.
Yeah, well, that's a very common use case for SubQuery, and we find that a lot, which is just simply that dashboard to be able to understand what's going on, whether it's a browser or an NFT marketplace, or just the blockchain network itself. A lot of teams will use SubQuery just to get the data off to be able to populate a dashboard. Do you really how much, when you're going around building and designing the products that you have at Folks, how much do you really dive into the data to figure out and validate what you build?
Yeah, so I can talk a little bit about that because unfortunately on Algorand there wasn't before SubQuery much of tools that you could use to build analytics. So for example, in the version 1 of the protocol, we built a LOA notifier, which was a very helpful tool. But in order to build it, we had to build our own customized indexer, which required months of work of our developers, and it was very painful. So indeed, it is a very valuable tool. It doesn't pivot direct revenue to the protocol. That is why it hasn't been still developed in the version 2, which is the version that is now. But it was a very useful tool. And at the same time, every time we had to think, okay, we want to build some dashboard for the users. I remember all the time the developer saying, okay, for doing that, we require a nice amount of work. There isn't much of tools ready that we can use on Algorand. So we always left it on the side. But indeed, when there was the time to develop Fox Router, we went connected to your team, to SubQuery, and this was extremely helpful in order to build valuable dashboards for the users.
It's interesting how like this kind of thing always gets put into the, yeah, we could do it, but it's just a little bit difficult, so we'll probably never do it, you know?
Yeah.
Especially when
that was specifically the case. It was always delayed or postponed because of not availabilities of tools.
And you've recently just released a new feature, a new product, which is your UltraSwap product, which kind of is another layer on top of the Fox Router.
Fox Router, yeah. So UltraSwap, it's a very cool use case of demonstrating the power of smart contracts and DeFi. So very often when we build something new in Fox Finance, this is because we have seen user, let's say, history and how the users use the protocol, right? It's also very similar to why we built Fox Router. We saw that many users was doing swaps on Fox Finance, so we pivoted our own DEX aggregator. We monitored that there was a nice amount of users that were using the lending protocol as a trading tool. So they would use certain collateral to borrow USDC, then with the USDC borrowed, by swapping more collateral to increase the collateral, borrow more USDC. And so basically what they were doing is going on an edge on their initial capital by borrowing USDC to buy more of the initial asset, right? So this, it was widely used in our community, but it was a manual process, very long. It could take up to minutes. And we were like, okay, we can simplify this in one click and also give them a nice interface of trading view so they can check the price. Okay, let's do it. So that was the idea behind it and how we developed it.
It's a great example of using kind of raw data from how people use
Yeah. Also, I forgot that the beautiful part is that Fox Router is built as a composition of loans, flash loans, and swaps with Fox Router. So we didn't add any new contracts, so no more risks added to the protocol. We just composed based on the contracts that we had in order to build something new.
Makes life very easy, these composable pieces. And I kind of joke with people, when I joke, I kind of tell people, it still feels like Web3's back in those early 2000s of the internet where we're building these composable pieces that the user experience isn't great right now, but because we're building these pieces and over time there'll be layers upon layers of things and 5 years, 10 years time, it will just work.
Yeah.
It would just be simple enough. My last question, Benedetto, is something I always ask people, and that is, if you hopped in a time machine tomorrow and went back and met yourself just before you entered the Web3 space, what bit of advice would you give to yourself?
So it's a nice question. I would be probably to be more wise with a certain choice. For example, when doing the round, choosing certain partners towards others. Also, as a founder, like the people you can trust are very often not what you expect. Like it's I don't think that we have done major mistakes, but indeed, like it's important also to learn from those that you do. So I don't know, because if I wouldn't have done the mistake, if someone would have said me, I wouldn't learn the lesson. So it's not that easy. I think we were very wise through our process. Yeah, but of course, predicting may be better than also the bear market would have been an happier advice to have.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Be careful who you get into bed with, and be careful about bear markets.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you very much for your time for the last 20 minutes, Benedetto, and I very much appreciated talking to you about Focus Finance and about the work that you guys are doing. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on this call.
Yeah, I also want to thank you and the SubQuery team because, of course, for having me here, but I can tell to the audience that working with SubQuery was very pleasant. Our developers were very supported from the team, and it was a very useful tools in order to build the metrics that, again, I suggest you to go and check at foxrouter.io/metrics. So you can see how much it's powerful to work together.
Just as you said, right, like that, learning from your customers and hearing about things to build, which is how you built UltraSwap. This is the same approach that we take with working with our customers, because the closer we're talking to your developers, the more things we hear from them, the better we can add features and make our products. So that's also just important to us as it is to you guys. Thank you very much again, Benedetto, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.
You too.